never thought a single sentence from my mom could change the direction of my life. It was one of those ordinary evenings, the kind where you think you know exactly how the night will go. I was sitting in the kitchen, scrolling through my phone while the faint sound of a game show played on the old TV in the living room. Mom was moving about quietly, humming to herself, the smell of chamomile tea drifting through the air. Then she walked in, set her hands gently on my shoulders and said, almost like it was nothing, "Just trust me." I looked up, puzzled. "Trust you with what?" I asked, half smiling. She didn't answer directly, just tilted her head, eyes warm but unreadable, and repeated, "Just trust me, okay?" I had no idea that moment would be the start of something I couldn't reverse. My name is Daniel. I'm 24, a little reserved by nature, the kind of guy people say is dependable but maybe too quiet. I've never been the center of attention, never been the life of the party. I grew up here in the same small suburban neighborhood, where you know everyone by name, and the biggest excitement is when a new coffee shop opens. My mom, Clara, raised me alone after Dad left when I was 10. She's strong, graceful in a way that makes people listen when she speaks, but she also has this side to her, a streak of mystery, like she's always holding back a part of herself. My days were predictable. I worked as a junior accountant at a small firm downtown, spent evenings either gaming or helping Mom around the house, and on weekends I'd grab coffee with Emma, my girlfriend of 2 years. Emma was warm and energetic, the type to make friends in a checkout line. She always teased me for overthinking everything, for being so cautious. "Live a little," she'd say with a laugh. But I had my reasons. Ever since high school, I'd carried this quiet, complicated part of myself. I never told anyone, not Emma, not even my closest friends. Sometimes late at night, when I was sure Mom was asleep, I'd try on one of her scarves or a bracelet she'd left out. It wasn't about pretending to be someone else, it was something about the texture, the style, the way it made me feel. It was like stepping into a softer, freer version of myself, one I didn't understand completely. I'd fold it away quickly afterward, afraid of what it might mean, afraid of what people would think if they knew. I never planned to say anything about it. Then came that night, and Mom's strange request. I remember setting my phone down, my brow furrowed. "Trust you with what, Mom? You're acting weird." She poured herself tea, glanced at me over the steam, and said, "You'll see. I've been thinking about something for a while now, and I think it's time." My pulse quickened. Time for what? I tried to joke it off, but she wasn't laughing. Instead, she asked me to follow her upstairs. Her room was softly lit by a single lamp, the air scented faintly with lavender. On her bed was something I didn't expect, a neatly folded dress, pale blue with delicate lace along the collar. Next to it, a small box. "What's this?" I asked. She sat on the edge of the bed, her voice calm. "I want you to try it on." I laughed instinctively, thinking she was joking. "You're serious?" She nodded. "Daniel, just trust me." The words landed heavier this time. My mind raced. She had to know I'd never worn anything like this in front of anyone. My first instinct was to say no, but there was something in her expression, an unshakable certainty, that made me pause. "Why?" I asked. She hesitated, then said, "Because I think you've been holding back a part of yourself for too long. And I think it's time you saw what I see." My chest tightened. I wanted to deny it, to pretend I didn't know what she meant. But the truth was, my secret wasn't as well hidden as I thought. My hands trembled slightly as I touched the fabric. It was softer than I expected, light under my fingers. I could feel my face warming. "Mom, this is a little much." She smiled gently. "No one else will see. It's just us. I promise." Against my better judgment, I agreed. I took the dress and stepped into the bathroom, closing the door behind me. The mirror reflected a face both nervous and curious. I slipped off my shirt and jeans, pulling the dress over my head. The fabric slid down, cool at first, then settling against my skin like it belonged there. It fit almost perfectly, which made me wonder how she had chosen it. I stared at myself. I didn't look like the me I saw every day. Something about the way the neckline framed my face, the way the skirt fell just above my knees, it shifted my posture, made me stand differently. I wasn't sure if it was embarrassment or exhilaration coursing through me. When I stepped out, Mom's eyes softened even more. "There you are," she said, almost under her breath. I tried to laugh it off, muttering something about looking ridiculous, but she shook her head. "No, you look right." The room felt warmer suddenly. I didn't know how to respond, so I just stood there. Then she opened the box and revealed what was inside: light makeup, a hairbrush, a few simple accessories. "We're not done yet," she said, her tone gentle but firm. I hesitated. "Mom, this is a lot for one night." She placed a hand on my arm. "Daniel, I'm not asking you to be someone you're not. I'm asking you to let me show you something. Just trust me." There it was again. Just trust me. I sat down, and she began brushing my hair, pulling it gently into a shape I'd never seen on myself. The soft bristles, the faint tug at my scalp, it was oddly calming. Then came the makeup, subtle touches that highlighted my features without overdoing it. I watched in the mirror as my own reflection shifted further from what I knew. She wasn't rushing. It was like she'd done this before. And maybe she had just never for me. My heart was pounding, but not entirely from fear. There was a strange kind of relief in letting her take control, in not having to hide this side of myself for once. When she was done, she stepped back and smiled. "Now look," she said. I turned toward the mirror and froze. It wasn't just that I looked different. It was that I recognized something in the reflection, something I'd felt in quiet, private moments but never seen so clearly. It was like meeting a part of myself that had been waiting patiently. My throat tightened. I don't know what to say." She squeezed my shoulder. "You don't have to say anything. Just be." That night, we didn't talk about why she decided to do this, or how she'd known. We just sat together, her sipping tea, me still in the dress, trying to process the flood of emotions. It felt unreal, but also more real than anything in a long time. And deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something I couldn't quite name yet, but would soon understand all too well. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual, the memory of the night before replaying in my mind like a scene from a dream I wasn't sure I'd actually lived. For a brief second, I expected to see the blue dress folded neatly on my chair, but it was gone. My everyday clothes were in their place, as if nothing unusual had happened. I rubbed my eyes and sat up, half convinced I had imagined it. But then I caught a faint trace of the lavender scent on my skin and realized it had been real. Downstairs, Mom was at the kitchen counter, humming the same tune as last night while slicing fruit. She glanced at me over her shoulder and smiled like it was just any other day. I poured coffee, feeling a little restless. "So last night," I began carefully. "Yes," she replied, her voice perfectly casual. "What was that all about?" She didn't look up from her work. "You needed to see yourself differently. And you did." I frowned. "That's it." She placed the fruit in a bowl and finally met my eyes. "For now." That answer should have been enough, but it only left me more curious and unsettled. At work, I couldn't focus. Every time I tried to crunch numbers, my mind drifted back to my reflection in the mirror. It wasn't just the dress or the makeup, it was the feeling. Like I'd opened a door to something I couldn't close. I told myself it was just a one-time thing, a strange but harmless moment between me and Mom. Still, part of me wondered if she was going to bring it up again. Days passed without mention of it, but my thoughts kept circling back. Emma called one evening, her voice bright as ever. "Hey, stranger. Haven't seen you all week. Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said quickly, too quickly. She laughed. "You sound distracted. You're not secretly building a time machine without me, are you?" I chuckled, but the truth was I was distracted by my own reflection, by the memory of my mother's approving smile. I didn't tell Emma. How could I? She loved me for who she thought I was, and I wasn't ready to complicate that image. A week later, it happened again. I came home to find the house quiet except for music playing softly upstairs. Mom's door was open just enough for me to see the edge of her bed and another outfit laid out. This one was different, A simple cream blouse with a high collar and a flowing skirt the color of autumn leaves. Next to it sat the same makeup box and a pair of modest heels. She looked up as I entered, her expression calm but expectant. "You're home," she said. "I thought we could try something new." My pulse spiked. "Mom, no pressure," she said lightly, but there was something in her voice that told me she already knew my answer. I hesitated, looking at the clothes. "Why are you doing this?" She stepped closer. "Because I think you've been afraid of yourself for too long. And you don't have to be." I should have walked away. I should have told her it was weird that I didn't want to, but I didn't. I closed the door and reached for the blouse. The fabric was soft, almost whisper-light in my hands. I changed slowly, aware of every button, every shift in the way my body moved as I stepped into the skirt. When I looked up, she was smiling that same knowing smile. "Sit," she said, motioning toward the chair. She brushed my hair again, this time parting it differently, adding a little more color to my cheeks, a touch of gloss to my lips. "There," she said. "Now walk to the mirror." I did, and for the second time I froze. The person staring back wasn't Daniel the quiet accountant. It was someone gentler in appearance, but not weaker. Someone who looked comfortable in a way I rarely felt. "You see it, don't you?" she asked softly. I swallowed hard. "I don't know what I see." She tilted her head. "That's okay. You will." The days that followed became a quiet pattern. Once or twice a week, Mom would set out something new for me, different colors, different styles. Sometimes casual, sometimes more formal. She never pushed for photos or anything public. It was always just us. But with each transformation, I found myself standing taller, moving differently. I'd catch glimpses in the hallway mirror and not look away as quickly as I used to. Still, there was tension brewing inside me. I didn't know how long I could keep this from Emma, and I didn't know what would happen if she found out. That tension came to a head one Friday evening. I had just finished changing into a soft gray sweater dress Mom had picked out when we heard a knock at the door. My stomach dropped. Mom peeked out the window, then turned to me. "It's Emma," she said calmly. Panic surged through me. "What?" She can't see me like this." I started toward the stairs, but Mom stepped in front of me. "Daniel, trust me." My heart was pounding so loudly I could barely hear. "Mom," she didn't move. "Go upstairs if you need to, but don't hide from yourself." Another knock, louder this time. I bolted up the stairs, nearly tripping over the hem of the dress, and closed my bedroom door. I could hear muffled voices, Mom greeting Emma, inviting her in. I pressed my ear to the door, every muscle tense. "He's just upstairs," Mom was saying. "Would you like some tea while you wait?" I cursed under my breath. I couldn't change fast enough without making noise, and I didn't dare risk her coming up. My hands shook as I stood frozen in the middle of my room, listening to the clink of cups downstairs. Then came footsteps on the stairs. My breath caught. The doorknob turned slowly. "Daniel?" Emma's voice. I scrambled to the corner, heart hammering. "Just a second," I called, trying to sound casual. "Are you okay?" she asked through the door. "You sound weird." I looked around frantically. There was no way out. I could hear Mom's voice drifting up from the kitchen, deliberately not stopping Emma. I realized with a mix of dread and suspicion that she had orchestrated this. Another pause. Then the sound of retreating footsteps. I let out a shaky breath. For now, I was safe. But I knew this close call wouldn't be the last. That night, I confronted Mom. "What was that?" I demanded. She looked at me evenly. "You can't live in two worlds forever. At some point, they'll meet." "You set me up," I said. "I gave you a chance to be honest," she replied. "That's not the same thing." She didn't argue further, but her words stayed with me. Over the next few weeks, I became more aware of how often Emma asked what I was doing at home, how she teased me for being secretive. I started wondering if she suspected something. Meanwhile, Mom's quiet campaign continued. The outfits became more complete: scarves, jewelry, even perfume. And with each new addition, the reflection in the mirror felt less like a disguise and more like me. I was still afraid, But the fear was no longer of the clothes themselves. It was of what would happen when the world saw this side of me. And deep down, I knew the day was coming when I wouldn't have a choice. I was still trembling when I sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the weight of the outfit sink into my skin, as if it were trying to become a part of me. The fabric was soft and clung to my frame in a way that made it impossible to ignore, every shift of my body reminding me that this wasn't a joke I could laugh off in a few minutes. My aunt leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, her eyes scanning me like she was memorizing every detail, and I hated how much that made me squirm. "Better," she said softly, almost as if she were talking to herself, then added, "You'll keep it on until I say otherwise." I opened my mouth to protest, but the words caught in my throat because deep down I knew she wasn't teasing. There was an edge in her voice that didn't allow room for argument. She left the room without looking back, and the sound of her footsteps fading down the hall only made the silence heavier. I sat there staring at the mirror across from me, the one I'd avoided looking into all morning, and when I finally raised my eyes to it, the reflection staring back didn't feel like mine. The clothes, the makeup, even the way my hair had been styled, it was all wrong, yet there was something disturbingly right about how it fit together, as if the person in the mirror had been waiting to emerge. I shook my head hard, trying to dispel the thought, but it clung to me like static, and my chest felt tight. Somewhere downstairs, I heard the faint sound of the front door opening, voices drifting in familiar, but too many of them. My aunt hadn't said anything about visitors. My pulse quickened. I stood, unsure whether to stay hidden or go down, and that's when her voice called up to me, sharper now. "Come down. They're waiting." Her gaze lingered on me longer than I was comfortable with, scanning my face like she was already imagining me in something else. Then she smiled, not the warm, motherly kind of smile, but a sly, knowing curve of her lips that made me feel like she was thinking 3 steps ahead of me. "You know," she said, glancing toward the hallway closet, "I think I have just the thing for you." Before I could even ask what she meant, she had disappeared down the hallway, the sound of hangers clinking and fabric rustling filling the air. My girlfriend rolled her eyes at me, but there was a strange amusement in her expression, like she already knew what was coming. When her mom returned, she was holding a hanger draped in something silky, pastel-colored, and definitely not made for a man. My stomach tightened as she stepped closer and held it up to my chest. "Oh yes," she said softly, almost to herself, "this will fit perfectly." I tried to laugh it off. What exactly is that?" I asked, my voice cracking slightly. "It's just a dress," she replied casually, like she was asking me to try on a jacket. "Humor me." My girlfriend snorted. "You're seriously going to make him try that?" Her mom's eyes didn't leave mine. "Yes," she said simply, "I am." And then, with a tone that felt more like a command than a suggestion, she added, "Go on. Upstairs. Try it on. Now." There was something in her voice, firm but oddly gentle, that made it impossible to say no. I felt my cheeks heating as I took the hanger, the silky fabric cool against my fingers. Without another word, I headed toward the stairs, feeling both ridiculous and strangely nervous. By the time I reached the guest room, my hands were trembling. I closed the door behind me, the click of the lock sounding far too loud in the quiet. I looked at the dress again under the warm light. It was soft pink, with lace around the collar and hem, and a fitted waist that I was sure would make me look even more absurd. But somewhere deep down, beneath the embarrassment, was a flicker of curiosity. I started unbuttoning my shirt. I woke up the next morning to the sound of soft humming outside my door. My heart skipped a beat before I even opened my eyes, because I recognized the voice, my aunt's, but the melody was unfamiliar. It was slow and sweet, like something you'd hum while dressing up a doll. I sat up, rubbing my eyes, and for a split second, I hoped she had forgotten about last night. But as soon as I opened my door, there she was, waiting with a steaming cup of tea and a smile that was far too calm for what she was about to say. "Drink this, dear," she said, pushing the cup into my hands. "You'll need the warmth and the steadiness." I asked her what she meant, but she simply gestured toward the living room. When I walked in, I froze. The table was covered with makeup palettes, hair products, jewelry boxes, and at least 3 different dresses laid out like exhibits in a museum. She clapped her hands together softly, almost in excitement. "Today we go all in," she said. "If we're going to do this, we might as well do it right." I stammered, backing toward the hallway, but she caught my wrist gently, not forcefully, but in a way that made it impossible to refuse. "You'll thank me later," she said, her voice soft but absolutely certain. What followed was a blur of sensations: the tickle of a makeup brush against my eyelids, the strange heaviness of false eyelashes, the cool pressure of lipstick being applied with absolute precision. She worked in silence, except for the occasional "hold still" or "tilt your head." The smell of hairspray filled the room as she twisted my hair, or rather, the hair extensions she had clipped into soft curls that brushed my shoulders. When I finally opened my eyes to see the mirror, I didn't recognize myself. Not even a little. The face staring back at me was delicate, the features softened, the eyes framed perfectly to draw attention. My first reaction wasn't horror or embarrassment, it was confusion. The boy I thought I was seemed to have vanished without even saying goodbye. My aunt's reflection leaned in beside mine, her eyes sparkling. "Now," she said quietly, "let's see how the world reacts." My chest tightened. "What do you mean?" She just handed me a small purse, placed a hand on my back, and nudged me toward the door.